Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Roth, the product manager for Blazor on the .NET team. And in this session, we're going to build interactive AI-powered web apps with Blazor and .NET. We're going to start by building a simple AI-powered Blazor web app together. We'll then look at how you can add additional AI capabilities and features using pre-built components like the .NET Smart Components. We'll then take a tour of some of the great AI features coming from the .NET ecosystem. Blazor is great for building AI-powered apps. Blazor's interactive server-side rendering makes it easy to connect rich interactive user experiences with cloud-hosted AI models. You don't need to build separate AI endpoints to expose server AI capabilities to the client. You can just do it all from the server. You can quickly add AI capabilities to your Blazor web apps using existing AI libraries like Semantic Kernel. Semantic Kernel really handles the complexity of connecting to various AI models and allows easy integration of app-specific capabilities and data. Blazor's reusable component model also simplifies building AI-powered apps. Instead of having to create each UI component from scratch, you can leverage a rich ecosystem of available components. Okay, let's just get started. Let's build our first AI-powered Blazor web app. I'm going to hop into here in Visual Studio, and let's create a new project. Let's create a Blazor web app, and we'll just use all the default settings. Just make sure you've got interactive server-side rendering enabled. We'll go ahead and create that. All right, let's go ahead and get our app running so we can see what we've got so far for our app. Blank canvas that we want to add some UI to. There it is. It popped over on my other screen. So we've got our home page here. And what I want to do is I want to add a simple, chat AI assistant user interface onto this page. Okay, so let's go back to Visual Studio and let's bring up that home component. And we're going to need like a text area and a button, and then display the response from the AI service. So let's get GitHub Copilot up. Let's get it to help us build the UI. Let's add a text area that is bound to a string message field and a send button that has an async send event handler. Also add a bootstrap card that displays a p tag with a response, a string response field. Okay, let's go ahead and see if that works. Let's get GitHub Copilot to do all the hard work for us. Add some Razor content here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we got a form, a field. So we got a text area there with the button. That looks good. And there's our response. And then we got a little bit of extra logic here for our send event handler. We don't need all this code. We'll just get rid of all that and have an empty send handler. Let's go ahead and accept that. Hot reload that into our Blazor web app. And yeah, that looks pretty good. We even got some nice headings in here. Let's add a little bit of margin. Here, let's get this side by side with Visual Studio. Let's add a little bit of margin on that that button. So we'll find the class for that. And we'll do margin top 2, I guess. And there, okay, perfect. All right, great. And so now, hopefully we can start connecting this to our AI service. Now, I'm going to use Azure OpenAI for this. I've already gone into the Azure portal, and I created an Azure OpenAI resource and deployed an AI model into that resource. I'm using GPT-4o, the latest, greatest. So you're going to need to do that yourself in order to do these next few steps. In order to connect to that AI service, I'm going to use Semantic Kernel. Semantic Kernel is a really great .NET library that's going to help me connect to really any AI model I want to. It'll handle sending the prompts, getting the responses, and orchestrating any AI-related features. So let's go ahead and add Semantic Kernel here to this app. And we want this Microsoft Semantic Kernel package. And then we're also going to want to be able to authenticate to Azure if you're using Azure OpenAI. So I'm going to add this Azure Identity library, and that's going to handle all of my authentication concerns for me. So let's go ahead and install Azure.identity as well. Cool. Okay, so now let's go into Program CS. Let's give us a little more space. And here's where we're going to wire up Semantic Kernel into our Blazor web app. So we're going to do builder.services.add kernel right here. Now, the kernel is the API that you use in Semantic Kernel to send the prompts, get the responses, configure what AI service you want to connect to, and handle all the orchestration. So that's good. We also need to say, well, which AI model do we actually want to connect to? And I'm going to need to add some code here for Azure OpenAI. To save on some typing, I'm just going to copy this snippet in. It's really just 2 lines of code. It's not bad. I'm going to pull out the parameters that I need to connect to the Azure OpenAI service from config. I've got this smart components config section set up. That's just what I happen to name it. You can name it whatever you'd like. But then we're going to call add Azure OpenAI chat completion. And we're going to pass in the deployment name for your AI model and the endpoint. And then you need to give it a credential to connect to Azure OpenAI. Now, this default Azure credential call comes from that Azure Identity Library. It's a really convenient API that can authenticate in a variety of ways, whether you're in development or in production. So in development, it will actually pick up my user account in Visual Studio, which I've also already in the portal given permissions to be a contributor on my Azure OpenAI resource. So once you've done that, this will authenticate as me in Visual Studio, and it will just work. And then when you deploy to the cloud, you can set up like an app identity and make sure that has permissions for your AI service too. Okay, so that's how you set up Semantic Kernel. And now we just need to use it. Let's go to our home component. And let's first of all, let's make sure that we make our home component interactive. We want to use interactive features so we can handle our button clicks. And then we'll inject the kernel. This is that kernel API that we set up in DI. And we'll just call this property kernel. Okay, and then down here in our send method, all we got to do is say response equals await kernel.invoke prompt async. And we want it to give us back just a string. We want the response as a string. So we'll use that generic parameter for that. And then we'll pass in the message that we got from the user. Okay, that ought to do it. Let's go ahead and restart the app. We did a bunch of work in DI, so we need to rebuild the DI container. And then let's look and see if this works. So let's see. Hi. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Refresh. Oh, that must be, I think that's so wrong. I think that must be an older version of the app that I was running. All right, let's get the app up. There it is. And let's say, hi, how are you? And then we'll go ahead and send that. Okay, hit send. Let's make sure that the message is being sent. Yep, I can see in the logging that it's invoking the model. That's good. Oh, great. Hello, I'm here, ready to assist you. How can I help you today? Awesome. So we just connected our Blazor web app to the AI service. Perfect. Now you notice it took a little while, and in fact, all the text came in like one big block, like it didn't stream in. I want it to stream in as it's being generated. How can we do that? Well, that's pretty easy. Instead of just calling invoke prompt async, we'll just do something slightly different. Let's clean out the response initially. And then instead of getting the response as one string, we're going to get a bunch of chunks, okay? And we'll do kernel.invoke prompt streaming async this time because we want to do streaming. And then we'll hand in our message. Now this call is going to actually give us an iasync enumerable. And so hopefully GitHub Copilot might help us with that. And it does. Nice. So we need to await for each of the chunks. And we'll just concatenate those onto the response. And then we got to tell Blazor that, hey, my state has changed. So please update the UI accordingly. Re-render the component. Okay, so let's go ahead and hot reload that into the app. And so now, if I type in here, let's say, tell me something a bit longer. I want it to have a bit longer response so we can see the streaming really happening. We'll go ahead and send that to the model. And then once the response starts being generated, we should see it start to chunk in. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, yeah, and you can see it's doing a bit at a time, and it's come up with some interesting response about bioluminescence. That's great. Okay, so we got streaming working. Awesome. Now let's try something else. Let's ask it, what was the last question I asked you? Like, does it remember things? Does it know my previous questions and its previous responses? And no, it doesn't look like it does. I think that's just the current question. So right now it has no like chat history notion. Like right now, this AI model is acting in sort of a stateless way. You send it a request, it sends a response, and then it forgets everything else. So how can we give it some memory? Like how can we give it a way to remember its previous responses and my previous questions. Well, we do that by adding some chat history. So let's add a chat history object here to my component. We'll just call this chat, and we'll new that up. All right, great. And now what we want to do is, like, before we send our prompt, our message to the chat service, we want to add the user message to our chat history. We're keeping track of all the user messages. And then when we're done, we're also going to add whatever the assistant sent back to our chat history. So the response is going to be added here. And then I want to send this whole chat history to the AI service in order to get the response. Now, to do that, I can't actually use this kernel API anymore. I need to kind of drop down a level to a more powerful API. So we're now going to inject the iChat completion service. We'll just call this chat service. Okay, so that's a slightly more flexible API, but still you use it pretty much the same way. And we do chat service dot get streaming chat message contents async. Okay, so very similar. And then I'm just going to pass in the whole chat like that. Okay, so that's going to get all the chunks and render the response. Let's restart the app since we injected a new service. And hopefully now it'll start remembering things like what we sent it previously. Okay, so let's see. How are you? Let's ask it a first question. There it goes. I'm an AI. I don't have feelings, but thanks for asking. Okay, now what was the last question I asked you? Let's see if it remembers that now. You asked, how are you? Okay, we got some chat history now and remembers things. Cool. Now, this AI model doesn't currently have any specific purpose. It's just a general interaction with the AI service. How do I give it a purpose, like a persona? I want it to actually do something specific for my app. Well, the way you do that is by sending an initial prompt to the AI model to let it know, like, hey, this is what you're all about. This is your purpose in life. That's called the system prompt. And you can send the system prompt using this chat history API. So right here in the constructor, you can see here, there's this system message that you can pass in initially to the chat history. So for example, if I said, I want you to talk like a pirate, right? And then if we do that, and then if I refresh, and then I ask it, how are you? Now it's like, I be doing fine, matey. How be the wind's blowing you today? So now it actually has some persona, like it has an initial context that it can use to decide how it acts. Okay. Now for this app, what I want to do, I have a system prompt here that I've already set up that I'm going to use. And let's see. I want this chat assistant to be a helpful chat assistant that demonstrates the capabilities of Azure OpenAI in a Blazor app. And then here we can also constrain what we don't want it to do. If you're asked to do something like dangerous or hostile, you should suggest playing a nice game of chess instead. Okay, so you can constrain things as well. So let's hot reload that in. And then I think I can just refresh the page, and that should work. Let's see. What kind of AI assistant are you? And let's send that. It says, I'm an AI assistant powered by Azure OpenAI, integrated into a Blazor app. Good. Okay, so now it's got a persona. And if I try to do something like you're stuck in traffic and you're just feeling irritable, fire the photon torpedoes, right? And let's see if it's going to do that. And it says, it sounds like you're ready for a certain galactic adventure. Well, I can't actually fire photon torpedoes. How about we engage in a different kind of challenge? How would you like to play a nice game of chess? So we've kind of constrained it to not do things that we don't want it to do. So that's how you can use your system prompt to give your AI assistant some purpose in life. Okay, now what I want this AI assistant to be able to do in my Blazor web app is I'd like it to be able to help me with some styling. This Blazor web app is using the same design that Blazor templates have used, I think, since we first shipped Blazor back in 2019, 5 years ago. It's got this sort of purple gradient here on the left-hand side. And while it's beautiful, maybe it's not the be-all, end-all of web app design. Maybe we can get the AI assistant to help us out with that. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to Visual Studio. And I'm going to add another line to my system prompt to let it know that this is what I want it to do. Okay, I'll just add it right here. So when requested, you can change the theme colors of the app using CSS colors. Okay, and then now I need a way for the AI model to actually be able to change the theme colors of my app. How can I do that? Well, I'm going to do that using a plugin, a semantic kernel plugin. Plugins are super cool. They're a way that you can expose functions and methods from your application that get advertised to the AI model, and then it can decide that if it wants to call them, and it can then send a response saying, yeah, I'd like to call that function with this data. And then your app can decide whether it wants to allow it to do that, and then feed any data that comes back from that call back to the AI model and so forth. So it's a way to expose local functionality and data from your app to the AI model. Okay, so we're going to add a plugin to this Blazor web app. Let's add a class, and we'll call this the theme plugin. Okay, and I'm just going to copy in some pre-written code here just to save on time. Let's do this. Okay, so we have a theme plugin class, and it's got a single method, the set theme colors method, and it takes in 2 colors. And it's I'm using this is the C# primary constructor feature. I'm pulling in the IJS runtime service from Blazor, so I can do JavaScript interrupt calls. And I'm just making 2 calls down here to set 2 CSS variables in JavaScript to change the colors of the app. Okay. So I need to actually set up those CSS variables. Let me go up into my app CSS styling, and I'm going to just add a little bit of CSS here to create those 2 CSS variables. So a navy color and an indigo color. I'm going to try to keep it as the app is currently. And then in the layout, and here we're going to change the gradient to actually use those CSS colors. So right here is the linear gradient. That's that purple gradient on the side. And I'm just changing it to now use those 2 CSS variables. Okay. All right, cool. So now we've got the theme set up. We've got a plugin that can call into JavaScript to set these CSS variables, change the theme. How do we now register our theme plugin with our application so that the AI can call it? Well, let's go into Program CS. We need to set it up with the kernel. Now, one way you can add plugins is right here off of Add Kernel. There's like a plugins collection that you can add, add from type or add from object. That works really well if your plugin is like a singleton. It's just a single instance. In my case, my plugin is actually I need it to be a scoped service because it depends on that IJS runtime service, which itself is also a scope service. So I'm gonna have to do something a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. I'm gonna do add scoped down here. And then I'm going to call this kernel plugin factory helper method to create my plugin from my theme plugin type. This returns a kernel plugin instance based on the theme plugin class that I'm feeding it. And that should then get picked up by Semantic Kernel so that we can let the AI model call it. Okay, so a little bit more elaborate DI going on there, but not too bad. All right, I have to do one more thing. You actually have to tell Semantic Kernel that it's okay for it to automatically call these kernel functions. Okay, so I'm going to go into my home component, and I need to add one setting right here. This guy right here. So this OpenAI prompt execution settings object. We'll add a using statement for that. It needs to set up this tool call behavior auto invoke kernel function. So that way it will be able to call our kernel function on our theme plugin. And then we just got to hand that in. So let's hand in the settings right here. And then I think I also need to pass in the kernel itself now to my chat completion service. All right. And that ought to do it. Let's restart the app. We messed around in DI, so we got to rebuild the DI container. And then once that's up and running, hopefully now I should be able to say, please set the theme colors for my app to something hip and cool. Okay, and let's see what it comes up with. All right, so sent our prompt. Okay, how about we try a combination of modern teal and stylish coral? And it changed it. It did it. It called my my kernel function. Awesome. And we can even ask it to tweak the colors a little bit, like please improve the accessibility given that the text is white. Okay, so we can have a little conversation to adjust the styling a bit. And it should hopefully darken things a bit. Shall we proceed with this new theme? Oh, yeah, it's asking me to confirm. Yeah, go ahead. There it goes. Okay, so it's updated the colors again. Awesome. I don't know. Maybe that's what the new Blazor web app template should now look like. All right, so we were able to connect our Blazor web app to an AI service. We were able to do a chat assistant that can stream in the responses, have chat history, and then we were even able to connect it to some local app capabilities using Semantic Kernel and plugins. Pretty cool. Now, this AI assistant UI is still pretty simple. If you wanted to have more elaborate features like suggestions and have it access more data and even cite that data, you can do that too. For that, I would encourage you to look at a different sample that we have, which is this eShop support sample. You can find this on GitHub. I think Steve Sanderson showed it earlier in the conference today. And if we look at this app, actually, do I have it still running? Let me pull it out over here. Get it going. I'll show you what this looks like. All right, this is a pretty elaborate app that's using .NET Aspire to coordinate a whole bunch of AI-related processes and services. But here in this staff web UI application, this is a UI that a support agent can use to handle like support tickets. Ooh, yeah, there's LastPass. All right, so here's like a grid where you can look at all the support tickets that are coming into the web app site. And if we pick one of these, you can see that it shows the chat interface with the customer. And it's got a bunch of nice AI features like this summary of the chat with the customer and so forth. But even better is it's got a full Blazor chat UI over here on the right-hand side that will display the full history. You can pick from suggestions. When it's trying to answer the customer's questions, it can see the customer chat and use like product manuals and documentation. Like here, it's even showing me how to respond to this customer based on some content from the product manual and so on. So a much more complete sample. Be sure to check that out. So if you want to figure out how to build a much more fleshed out Blazor chat user interface. Cool. Okay. So that's pretty neat. That's how we can add AI features to our Blazor web apps ourselves, like building them ourselves. And there are plenty of ways to add AI capabilities to a Blazor web app that aren't just chat. You can have features like text summarization or smart type suggestions or semantic search. Blazor's component model makes it really easy to package up chunks of AI-related web UI so that they can be reused. The .NET Smart Components are a set of simple drop-in components for Blazor, as well as MVC and Razor pages that make it easy to add AI features to your apps for useful scenarios. Now, we've made the code for the .NET Smart Components freely available as reference implementations. They're basically a bunch of samples so that they can help bootstrap an ecosystem of AI-enabled .NET components. Let me show you what the .NET Smart Components can do. You can find them at ak.ms/.net/components. All right, so let's hop back into Visual Studio. And let's go to the .NET Smart Components. There we go. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and get this running. This is the sample app from that Smart Components repo. Okay, so first thing, let's look at Smart Paste. So Smart Paste is just this Smart Paste button. And what it does is like, sometimes you have a form with form fields, but the data that you're trying to enter into those form fields is coming from free form text. Like maybe you're getting an email from someone or a text message, and you have to like copy and paste like the name out and the age and put it in each of the separate fields. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just like copy all the text and just hit Smart Paste and have the AI model figure out where the fields should go for you? So that's what Smart Paste does. You can see it put the right name in the name field and the age in the age field. Here's another example. This is like a bug submitting form. If I grab one of these like email texts with a bug report and just, oh, I don't have Smart Paste in this feature. Can I add it really quick? Let's go and find the bug report form, and let's just add a Smart Paste button right there. Yeah, now I got my Smart Paste button, just hot reloaded in. So I quickly dropped in a Blazor component, and boom, now people can add bug reports using this form by just clicking Smart Paste. It figured out what the repro steps are, what project it should go in, and so forth. So that's Smart Paste, and it works with any form. That first form that we were looking at, this was actually built not with like generic Blazor components, but was actually built with the Radzin component library. Radzen's a great open source and free component library for Blazor, and SmartPaste works with their components as well. So there's the Radzen template form and so on. Okay, so that's SmartPaste. Smart Text Area is a text area where it will suggest completions. Like, let's imagine this is an employee query response form where you can ask questions about, like, you know, HR policies, like what's your employee vacation balance, like your employee vacation balance, and, you know, the person doing this will be like, oh, I don't remember how much it is. Oh yeah, it's currently 10 days. You can find the policy. What's the URL at? Oh, it's got nice semantic smart completions for me that you can configure. Like if we go look in the smart text area sample here, you can feed it a bunch of phrases that it can feed to the AI model to use to help provide those smart suggestions, including all the URLs that you might need to include or any contextual data that might be useful. Okay, so that's smart text area. And then lastly, smart combo is a semantic search enabled combo box. Like maybe you have a big long list of items and you don't remember exactly the right item to pick. Like for an expense category, you've got a plane ticket, but you don't remember what the category is. Semantic search will match what you typed in semantically with the list of items, so you don't have to remember exactly word for word what those items are. Another example is like maybe you have an issue, you're trying to remember the right issue label, and you know it's a mobile issue, but you don't know which label to use. Okay, it identified the mobile related issue labels for Android and iOS. Excuse me. All right, so that's cool. So that's semantic search, and this is actually using a local model, calculating local embeddings using that local model, and you can just drop it into your existing apps. So those are the .NET Smart components. It's a way that you can have Blazor components that just add AI features directly to your web apps without you having to do a whole lot of work. All right. Now, the smart components are actually, they're just samples. They're like ways to get you started with building AI features. But there are also pre-built AI components available from the .NET ecosystem. So let's take a look at some of the great .NET AI components that are coming from the big component vendors of the world, like Telerik, DevExpress, and Syncfusion. Now, Telerik already provides a pre-built AI prompt component to streamline integrating AI services in your Blazor and MVC apps. It's fully customizable through templates and events, and it supports globalization, localization, and right to left rendering. Telerik also has several experimental smart components that they're working on that you can try out, including smart search integration in their data grid and also in their combo box controls. And they were kind enough to give me some demos to show you. Let's look at some of the Telerik components. Okay, so let's go back here into Visual Studio, and let's bring up Telerik. Okay, so here's the Telerik sample apps. And let's first take a look at their built-in AI prompt component for Blazor. And this is already shipped, and you can use it today. So this is going to show the Telerik PDF viewer that'll display some, Telerik PDF document with a whole bunch of text in it. But what's neat is it has this AI assistant button that we can just click. It's got a place to put in the prompt. It's got suggestions that it displays. It will display the output. So we can ask it something like, I don't know, how many components does Telerik have? And that should be able to look in the PDF doc and find an answer. Telerik Deadcraft has over 1,250 modern feature-rich components. Is that really true? Let's see, did it hallucinate that? Yeah, down here, it features 1,250 modern rich components. So it's actually pulling from the doc. So that's a pre-built AI assistant UI that you can just use. And then for some of their Blazor experiments, they have, this is their Telerik data grid that's got semantic search integrated. So here it's displaying like a bunch of food categories in the grid, and we can search with specific foods, and it should find the appropriate food category. Like if I search for milk, we find dairy products. If I search for cake, then we find things like desserts and candies and confections. So semantic search in the data grid, that's pretty neat. And then they have their own version of a smart combo box. This is pretty cool. Like it actually has a drop down, shows you all the options that you can look through. And then if you start searching like for pasta, it'll show you all the pasta related food items in that combo box. So smart search and pre-built AI prompt component from Telerik. Pretty nice. All right, now DevExpress, they're working on a bunch of AI-powered enhancements for their upcoming release in December. So this is stuff that's in the works. They're adding integrated APIs to make it really easy to connect to Azure AI services and really any model with DevExpress UI components. They're building AI-assisted text processing in their text editing components. They're also working on a pre-built Blazor chat UI for creating your own co-pilots and chat assistants. And what's really neat is they actually have working on integration with Azure AI Assistants, which is a new API, a new stateful chat API with support for persistent chat threads, access to like multiple file formats that you can feed into it, and also powerful built-in tools or plugins that you can just use without having to build them yourselves. Let's take a look at some of their new stuff. They actually gave me an early preview of some of these new features that we can try out. All right, so let's go look at DevExpress. All right, so if we run this. All right, cool. So here we have this is the DevExpress data grid. And this is showing a whole bunch of like project information, a bunch of work items and their priorities and their state. But what's neat is over here on the right-hand side, we have the DevExpress chat UI component that's just there and ready for us to use. Let's ask it a question. Let's ask it, which specific task should the team focus on and why? We'll feed that into the model. And that has access to all the data in the data grid. So it should be looking at all this data and then trying to figure out, okay, well, let's look at priorities, let's look at the status and see if we can figure out which items are best for the team to work on. There we go. Oh, so okay, so we got a high priority task to check the register. It's assigned to Mike Roller and status is new, so that looks good. And we got a bunch of medium tasks that we should probably do next, and then the low priority task. So that's awesome. Yeah, that looks exactly right. So that's the chat UI integrated with their data grid. Here's another example where the chat UI is integrated into their report viewer. So this report viewer is like displaying reports in a PDF format. But again, we can pop out their AI assistant, chat assistant UI. And here we can maybe ask questions about this market share data. Let's see, let's ask it, how did the market share change in India? Okay, let's see. Market in India went up by 9.52% in March and then down by 21.62% in September. Is that actually correct? And yeah, that looks right. That these values are in fact coming from that report. So that's cool. So that's the chat UI from DevExpress. They also have really great rich text editing components. Like this is like a word processor component that they ship. And that now they're working on AI integrated features. So you can ask it to like translate the word processor into German for you using AI, or you can ask it to like summarize some text for you. Let's summarize this big long paragraph using AI, and like, there's a much shorter version, so you can get the pithy read. Okay, so those are some new features coming from DevExpress. A pre-built chat UI component integrated with AI services and integration with their rich text editing experience as well. Lastly, I want to show you some stuff from Syncfusion. Syncfusion is also building out AI features for .NET with several new features coming in their upcoming Essential Studio 2024 Volume 3 release in September. This release will include a Blazor AI Assist component for integrating AI services. Their AI Assist component can send and suggest prompts, execute commands using toolbar options, and even and display responses in an easy-to-use format. It provides toolbar options for copy, edit, like and unlike, and you can, of course, add your own custom toolbar options too. So let's take a look at what they've got with their AI Assistant component. Let's hop back over here into Visual Studio and look at Syncfusion. Sure. All right, and this is, again, early bits from them, so this is all still in preview. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so here is Syncfusion. Here's their AI Assist component. Really nice chat UI. It's got suggestions. It's got these like toolbar options for copying and saying like and unlike. We can send a prompt into the model. It shows the whole chat history there and it renders the response. So nice pre-built UI, so you don't have to do it all yourself. They're also experimenting with the .NET Smart components. Like here's a Sync Fusion version of Smart Paste that they built that is integrated with the Sync Fusion Blazor components. Like we can copy this text and again, fill out this bug report form. Again, all built with Sync Fusion components. And they also are working on their own smart text area. Again, it will do smart suggestions for us. You can see it's even typing for me. It's like guessing what the complete next sentence will be. Pretty cool using the AI model. So those will work with the Sync Fusion theming systems and so forth. So those are experimental and are working on those as part of their upcoming release. All right. Awesome. So that's what I wanted to show you today. So in summary, Blazor and .NET can make building your next AI-powered web app really easy. You can build AI features yourself using powerful .NET libraries like Semantic Kernel, or you can leverage a whole ecosystem of existing .NET AI components. Here is a summary of the samples and resources that I mentioned in this talk, so you can go and look at them and try them out yourself. Thank you very much for listening, and be sure to check out other ways that .NET can help you build your next great AI-powered app at aka.ms/.NET Focus AI/collection.